So I'm back, Joni Jameson, to talk about AP Literature and AP Seminar and how you can use the High Museum to enrich both of those courses. So we'll begin with AP English Lit, and these I pulled these out of the actual curriculum for AP Lit to kind of give us an idea of why art fits. So you're going to have an active reading of text. I put art next to it because, students should examine works that may be controversial, including references to ethnicities, nationalities, religions, races, dialects, and it goes on, and in works of literature. But then here we can go with art, and like I said earlier, the kids can see it. And so especially when these things might be somewhat controversial or something that might just upset them a tad. It doesn't necessarily even have to be upset their way of seeing the world. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just upsets the way they've been seeing it. Makes them more aware of their perspective and that they had one. Because a lot of times they think they just have the right answer. They don't realize it's their perspective, and this kind of shakes them up a little bit. This also, one of the things with AP Lit is they're supposed to write in all kinds of genres, not just the 3 essays from AP Lit. I mean, we definitely spend a lot of time practicing those, but they need to be flexible. The more flexible they are, the more able they are to respond to whatever they may be asked. So their thinking needs to be flexible. And this gives them some more open opportunities for choice. The more they write about what they want to write about, the more they write. And then the more comfortable they become writing, the more comfortable they become writing when you tell them what to write about. So it gets their fluidity, it gets their stamina going. And art, even if you don't get it, you like it. It's just interesting. So this kind of gets them going. And they feel empowered when they start believing they can see things and they can understand things. And this combats that fear of poetry, because they kind of start with that same fear with art, but then they can get drawn in because they can see it and someone can point at it. Whereas in poetry, it's just this, they can't really grab it. So once they can grab a hold of a painting, then all of a sudden they feel like they can grab a hold of poetry. It's very empowering that way. So when we want to look at it as art as text, then we start having transferable skills. So you're talking about tone, and you're talking about mood, and you're talking about allegory and allusions. And shockingly, they're in art, and they're in poetry, and they're in prose, and they're going to be in their open-ended, and they're going to be in their novels. And the kids start realizing, wow, literature doesn't exist in a box, and it's not just for fun and beach reading, and I don't have to hate Dickens so much after all. Wow, that really meant this. And it becomes more engaging for the kids. So they start, often we hear about tactic learners and these different kinds of things. Well, visual learners, this gives them something very visual other than words on a page that can really be upsetting. So this gives them a chance to start with a visual as the stimulus, which the history folks started with this, talking about this earlier. These are 2 pieces that I found just compelling. One we looked at earlier today, which was Destination Unknown, and it was the medicine, and it felt like it was healing and that type of thing. But the more you look at it, you're more like, why is that there? How come I can't see this other thing? And you're turning your head and you're looking around. And it's sort of like I try to tell my kids with poems. You turn them upside down and you flip them around and you look all over the place and you find these different meanings. Well, Bailey does that for us, to me. And he makes you almost stand on your head trying to figure out what's behind that rectangle and that type of thing. And you start understanding that they're hiding things to get you to see them, and so that they're creating this mystery and this thing to get you in there. I just love this piece, and I'm not an art historian. And then you have the Birmingham totem on the other side, and that is, I just think it's breathtaking. And so these 2 pieces they begin in some pretty horrific moments of American history for African Americans. So it's not hard to find a poem to kind of get that. So I wanted to find something that was a little different. It wasn't the Langston Hughes. It wasn't the thing you typically find. So, but it's blatant. There's no mystery. I wonder what's in that poem. So it kind of gives them a place to get started if you wanted to go with something like this. You want to get to the point where the kids pick the piece and they pick the poem and they start putting them together and they start having fun doing it in a different from you kind of way that's more, oh, I bet you didn't see this, you know, I bet you didn't notice these two things have something in common. You could bring them with a pack of poems, you could have taught a number of poems, or you could be like, you know, your book is full of poems, what do you want to do? And it just kind of depends on your kids and where they're at, what time of the year you would come and bring them to the high. I think it would be fun to bring them early with a giant pack of poems and let them just go scavenger away and see what they could find. And maybe they would fall in love with a poem or a piece. Self-Portrait by Butterfield is just this piece. You just come around a corner and you just kind of stop for a minute. And then you start looking at it and you're like, what is she saying? And then you go and look and it's called Self-Portrait. And then you're like, oh, I have to look again. And you go around this thing over and over and over again. And our first unit, this is AP Lit. But one of the things I like to focus on is the same thing I'm going to do in seminar, which is identity. Who are you? You know, why are you that person? And I thought, well, this is perfect. So we could get a poem, and then we can get the piece, and we can start talking about how do you find yourself, how do you represent yourself, how do you tell someone else who you are, and then we can start going into some other things and start looking at novels and other text. And this is one of those nice places. I just love when you start seeing the AP courses cross over each other, and then you can start breaking down those cinder blocks that break us apart in the schools and keep us separated when we really belong together. But this I just thought was fun. A self-portrait, this is definitely going to shake some kids up. So I like them to go look for some common elements. Go find two things that give you the same mood. Try to find a painting that puts you in the mood. Think about it that way. Let's don't even try to name the mood. How do you feel this way when you look at this, and you feel this way when you read that? Let's don't even worry about names yet. Let's just kind of get in there. And then ask them to write an essay that compares the treatment. So we're going to talk about these share a theme. Well, self-portrait, they share a name. Let's compare those. Let's start with that one. And then how do they do that? Well, they've been asked on AP Lit tests before to compare two poems and how they deal with a theme or a subject or an idea. And so this would be the same type of thing. But they would come at it from two different stimulus. So I think that would be a lot of fun. These are just, I try to take some old prompts and play with them and make them artsy. So we could, like the last one, study the piece of art carefully and then write an essay in which you analyze how the piece reveals the speaker's complex conception of the subject. Doesn't that sound like art? When you start taking out all the words, it's like, hey, wow, this really is very art-like. So, you can get the kids to get in there and start, well, I guess I do like words after all. Words and paintings, they express. And so they can start finding out that, again, these things are connected. So some literary analysis prompts. I just think this is so vibrant. I just love the Dirty Spoon Cafe. And then we have, it's a Georgia artist like Bailey earlier, so of course we tend to like them the best. In a well-organized essay, briefly summarize the subject and message of the piece, analyze the use of detail, images, and other elements to convey the artist's point of view. So then you got point of view, and you get perspective, and then you start tying them all together again, and it's just another thing. And this just, when you first see it, to me, I just see color, and then I just start honing in, and I just think this is a lovely piece. So this would be an analysis piece they could do. And then this was the most fun for me to play with, honestly. I made more of these than I should have. But the last one is my favorite. But open-ended prompts, I was like, oh, I can't do that, because that's not, this is analysis, not that. And then I was like, wait a minute. So choose an abstract or contemporary piece of art that the subject matter is not immediately evident. We've looked at some of those today. In a well-organized essay, describe how the artist manages to convey her message without a clear subject. Do not merely describe the piece of art. Any piece you want, so that's that open-ended, just like, pick a novel, and it was, choose a contemporary novel but didn't change much, And I'm, of course, thinking of a number of these things, and at this point, Bailey right now, and I'm thinking, well, fun would that be? So you can get them to start this way. You can write an outline, they could do whatever, but that you could give them a prompt before they come and let them wander about and find the one they want to write about. So that was the same question, and Bailey, of course, is where I went with that. But this would be some AP Lit things you could do at the high, through the high, with the high. And then that slides right into AP Seminar. And AP Seminar being a new course, people are kind of floundering around trying to figure it out. One of the things they do is you have a individual research project, and they give you a packet of information, and within that are going to be visuals. What kind of visuals? You don't know. You know, they'll come out in January, and then you'll get to find out. So the kids are going to have to play with some visuals, and art is visual. It's fantastic. So this would be a great place to get started. And what the kids have to do is they take all of these different things, text and visuals and those types of things, they have to come up with a theme. And then they have to write a research paper. And they have to use at least one of these things as evidence within their research paper. The thing could be the visual. It doesn't have to be the 7-page research study or the whatever, the essay. It could be the visual. And so getting them to use the visuals as evidence is just a very powerful tool for them, that they have something to say. And so using it as an argument. So using art as an argument. Let's just start there. The AP Seminar class has, just all kinds of things that the kids are supposed to walk away with. And this, like human, I thought I'd show you just a number of things that work here. One of the types of writing they're supposed to do is reflection. How perfect for you saw what? What'd that make you think? Well, that's perfect. Argument, presentation affects interpretation. So the way someone presents an argument impacts the way we interpret it. Well, that definitely has a tie to art. So evaluate an author's perspective or argument. These things are very, very tied into the High Museum. So this was the piece I chose. It's a companion piece, but this was the one I went to. This is Study for the Results of Poor Housing. Again, another Georgia artist. This is the 1940s. This is not a happy place. This is not someone feeling good. This is something that the kids can jump in. The artist must be saying something. You don't typically think of someone painting something this upsetting, and this is something that we can play with the poetry again, like, linking it back to lit, is life is going along and something happens that makes an artist stop, and they've got to respond. And here we go, we're responding, and the poetry is responding. So what are we responding to? And you start talking about the 1940s. What's happening? Who's in the picture? What's going on? What's this artist want you, the person standing out here looking at this, to think, to do, to react to whatever, have a feeling about, have, march about, what kind of, they want you to do something, not just, oh, that's nice. They want to elicit a response out of their audience, just like words do. So they would play with this. So they would try to come up with an argument, because this would be, what would you link this to? What else? What have you read that makes you think of this? What goes back and forth? So they're going to end up having to support some kind of argument that they're going to come up with a theme. They're going to come up with different pieces of art, and they're going to make a theme. And they're going to be able to practice all of those skills that are in the course description that are just too many. And they're going to be able to do like just a little baby task 2, which is that individual research piece, and use some art when they do it. And there's a number of handouts for you to be able to play with for different ways of doing this and manipulating it. Give them the pieces that you decide, let them pick some pieces. There's pros and cons of both. They're given pieces in one of their big tasks, so they have to figure out a theme out of those, but the other tasks, they're left to their own devices, and they work within a group to come up with their own original theme. But they may be overwhelmed with art when they walk in, and there's floors and floors of art, and there's just all of these different kinds of things. How in the world are they going to tie that all together? So it may be in their best interest that you kind of hone them in at the beginning, even if they're older kids. So the visual literacy part is going to have a lot to do with, they're going to read art as an argument. This is literacy. They're reading art as an argument. They're seeing it as this. They're going to read it as evidence. This is evidence of what the kind of thinking was going on in the 1940s. That piece was. Magama is evidence of what is something that is prevalent in all of our minds today, and so they can see this. Then they're going to write about it. They're going to write about the art itself, their interpretation of the art. Not, I think it's going to be, I think because, and then start bringing some stuff in. So it's not just a how I feel about my summer vacation type of writing. It's a dig in here. What did you find? What's the rich material you found in here to explore? They're going to make all kinds of connections between arts and ideas and text and start seeing a larger, bigger, richer world around them, which is part of advanced placement. And the College Board's purpose is to make us better citizens, more well-read, to make us involved in the world around us and not be just passive people that just move through life and have life happen to them. They want them engaged. And that's something that art can do. These people are engaged, and this lets the kids get engaged. So one of the things I would have the kids do is work independently. They would examine and analyze it as a text. So the AP seminar course materials has breaking it down into the pieces, a lot like Feldman at the beginning. So there's a handout that's connected that you can look at and go through the Feldman versus the seminar way of doing it. And then the kids see how this is almost just like what I do with words. This is almost just like, and they can go down through there, and it's pretty fantastic. And then they can pick all kinds of different pieces to play with and find argument within those. And thank you.